Welcome to the task breakdown for manually installing Security Universal network connectors. My name is Brian Kaiser, the lead engineer for Security Universal, and I'll be your host for this task. Before we get started, let's take a look at a sample corporate environment to show how we can best utilize the Security Universal platform. While there are many individual customized approaches that you can take that will best fit your environment, the following is a basic example which will help you to understand the core structure of Security Universal network monitoring and management. For this example, we have a company with a large corporate office and then a smaller branch office. Each office has networking that contains multiple subnets, but for sake of space, only 2 subnets are shown here for each office. Next, let's add some servers represented in gray and workstations represented as laptops. When you sign up for Security Universal, you're provided with your own dedicated security platform that manages 24 individual security and compliance components, as well as access to the web console for management. To automate the deployment of agents, we're going to assume that we already have at least one Security Universal network connector up and running. It is the network connector's job to periodically report back to the Security Universal platform and to relay task instructions to agents under its management. Once the agents are installed on all hosts we want to manage, the agents will periodically check in with the network connector and report status, as well as perform any scheduled or on-demand security tasks. Now that we have an example of the Security Universal architecture, let's get started with the task. First, let's log into our customer-specific web console. To get to the network connector submenu, we have 2 options. First, we can click on the link within the onboarding tasks. The second option is to use the side navigation menu, which we'll demonstrate here. Once we've reached the network connector submenu, you'll see that we have the option to deploy network connectors. If we already have a network connector running, we could use this option to automate the network connector deployment. But since this is our first network connector, we need to install one manually. We can start that process by clicking on the Network Connectors button. This is where we keep our directory of network connectors. As you can see, we currently have no network connectors installed, so let's start the process by clicking on the plus button in the upper right corner. The Add New Security Universal Network Connector menu will pop up. As with any add menu in Security Universal, you can hover over the question mark button to see a brief description of each field. Let's go ahead and add some basic details about the host we'll be using for the network connector. By default, the network connector communicates with agents on TCP port 8082, but you can change the port here if you'd like. For this first host, we'll demonstrate on a Linux machine. And last, we'll choose the scope of management for this network connector. Since this is our first network connector in this environment, we'll assign it to manage all of our hosts. Other options include assigning management at the asset group, subnet, or asset tag level. Since we chose the all option, the last field is not applicable, but if we needed to manage multiple entities, we can do so by holding the control button to select multiple options. Once we are ready, let's click on the Add button to create our network connector deployment package. Depending on the size of your environment, this process can take up to a minute or so. When the processing is completed, we are presented with the installation instructions. These instructions are operating system specific and simple to follow. When ready, let's click the Download button to download the deployment package zip file. Once the download is completed, click on the Done button to close the installation window. When the page finishes reloading, you'll notice that the network connector is now registered and we can begin the installation process. To transfer the deployment package to our target host, we're going to use a secure file share. If you prefer, you can also use common automation and deployment tools such as Active Directory, PowerShell, Puppet, or Chef. Here, we'll go ahead and copy the downloaded zip file to the file share. Next, since this is a Linux host, we're going to SSH into the machine. The first thing we need to do on our target host is to create the application directory. This can be any location you prefer, but for this demonstration, let's create a Security Universal directory within the op directory. Next, let's unzip the deployment package from the share drive to our new application directory. Let's navigate to the application directory and check the contents to make sure that the unzip process completed successfully. As expected, it looks like all of our files were copied over. The last step for the installation process is to run the installation bash shell script. The script starts by adding host firewall rules for the agent management listening port and then installs each of the 3 network connector services. Let's next check the status of each of the network connector services. We'll start with the network connector service, which is the main service and performs the majority of Security Universal tasks. It looks like we're good here. Next, let's check the agent Authenticator service, which authorizes and validates new Security Universal agents when they register. And we are good here as well. Finally, let's check the Agent Manager service, which is the service that communicates with agents. Looks like we're running here as well, so we can consider the manual Linux network connector deployment completed. Let's go back to our web console and repeat the process of completing a deployment package, but this time we'll choose a Windows host. We'll add the host details just as before, but this time let's choose Windows for our server operating system. Also, instead of assigning the scope to all agents, let's set this one to manage at the asset group level. Next, let's create the deployment package by clicking the Add button. Just like before, this process can take up to a minute or so, depending on the size of your environment. The installation instructions are shown, and let's click Download to download the deployment package. Our Security Universal Network Connector directory will reload, and we now see that the new Windows Network Connector is registered. We'll again use this secure file share to transfer the downloaded deployment package to the target host. Once the transfer is completed, we're ready to start the Windows installation process. Here, we've opened a remote desktop connection to our target host, and you can see that the deployment package is available on the shared drive. Let's start by double-clicking on the zip file. Next, let's extract the zip file contents to a newly created application directory. Once the extraction process is complete, we can see that the deployment package has been successfully copied to the application directory. Scroll to the setup.exe file and double-click to open the installation wizard. You can read through and acknowledge the licensing agreement, and when ready, click on the Next button. You'll notice that for Windows, we're installing an extra service, the Network Connector Manager. This service acts as a control center for the 3 network connector services and aids in management tasks. Next, we'll reach the platform verification step. The pairing key is auto-populated from the deployment package and should not be modified. We do need to verify before proceeding by clicking the Verify button. We next need to select a service account that will be used to run the Windows services. This account should have administrator privileges to ensure the ability to monitor all processes on the machine. It's important to note that if you're using a local account, that the account has sign-on as a service right. To verify, you can navigate to the local security policy to ensure that the account has the required right. Let's navigate back to the setup wizard and finish entering our account details. Next, we'll configure the additional options. The current directory where we executed the setup.exe file is auto-populated for the installation directory, but you can change the location here if preferred. The client pre-auth key enables automation of agent deployment. A unique value is populated, but you can change here as necessary. Also, if you prefer to have agents communicate with the network connector on a port other than TCP 8082, you can choose a different port here. And we've reached the confirmation page, so let's verify our selections. And when ready, we'll click the install button. The installation process will begin, and when completed, you can view the README file if you'd like. Now that the installation is completed, let's verify that our network connector Windows service was successfully installed. We'll use the Task Manager and navigate to the Services tab. And here we find the SU Network Connector service installed and running. And with that, we've officially completed this task and are ready to start using our new network connectors. For all of us here at Security Universal, thank you very much for your time, and please check out our other task breakdown videos for more tips and tricks.